Welcome back to Season 3 of Driving Performance. My name is Tom Shea, your co-host, the co-founder and CEO of Agile Media Group. I'm joined by my co-host,
Max Flannery, co-founder and president of Agile Media Group.
And we are excited to introduce our next guest, Noah Friedman. By way of introduction, Noah Friedman is the co-founder and managing partner of Top Shelf Ventures, a venture private equity fund focused exclusively on opportunities in the multi-trillion-dollar alcohol and devices industry. In other words, Noah and his team are working to hunt down the next big innovations in spaces like spirits, beer, cannabis, and perhaps even gaming and other vice-related consumer sectors. He's also the co-founder of Uncharted alongside Michael Loeb, which Max and I have had the great pleasure of attending their programming over the years. Noah, welcome to Driving Performance.
Thanks, boys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I like to ask the same question of all guests at the very beginning here. For the audio-only listeners, how would you describe what the hell is happening right now?
This is out-of-home guerrilla marketing at its finest. We are in a lovely, almost sauna, but thank God the AC is on. It's a truck parked right near you.
The hot box. The hot box.
Definitionally the hot box. Thank you for the AC again. Every side of the truck is clear glass. There are people stopping and looking, asking what the hell's being done here. And this is performative marketing at its best. And honestly, I said this before we started, a great case study for why Agile is such an awesome business, because it turns heads and gets people to stop and pay attention.
I appreciate that now. All right, so I want to introduce the structure of our podcast. As we are in a truck, the theme is we have a few stops along our route today. So stop one is going to be the personal story, all things Noah before the professional career, before Top Shelf, before Uncharted. Stop two is going to be the professional story. We're going to dive deep on Uncharted, Top Shelf, and I'm excited to talk about Outer Signal a little bit as well, which is a new investment for Top Shelf. Stop three.
Noah, not Top Shelf.
For Noah. For stop three, the Hot Box. It's our ripoff of the game called the Hot Seat, a this or that style question game.
Where are the wings?
They're coming. They're coming. And the joints are also coming. Stop four is the outro. It'll be our final stop along the route. We'll send you on your way, and we'll go from there. But you ready to dive in?
Let's ride.
Let's do it.
All right. So Noah, would like to start from the very beginning. You've obviously had a really awesome professional career. I want to start with the personal backstory. Who is Noah? What were some of the formidable moments that brought you to where you are today?
I grew up in New York City, only child, amazing parents. Dad was/is an actor, mom is a therapist. So very EQ heavy household, if you will.
Sure.
I had a transformative and transformational moment when I started playing travel hockey when I was like 9 or 10.
Okay.
And growing up in New York City in a actor and therapist household, there was an emphasis on emotional skills and soft skills. And I went to a very progressive private school.
Okay.
And I'm very grateful for the fact that I had a hockey coach. His name was Dan O'Brien.
Shout out Dan.
Shout out Dan O'Brien. In the very off chance that I would say 0% he ever listened to this, because I don't think hockey coaches love this stuff. But hey, Danny, thank you if you listen. He basically, can I curse?
Yeah.
He beat the shit out of me for many, many years and just instilled a whole new appreciation of discipline and hard work, that not to take away from my parents not putting that into me, because they did in other ways, but the athlete mentality, work hard mentality, almost military style mentality.
Yeah.
I can't claim military because I wouldn't want to discredit and disrespect the actual military, but that level of intensity,
right,
he pounded into me early. And I'm super grateful for that, because I think it was genuinely transformational for me, like building a discipline and understanding the connection between goals and hard work and a team. And a very distinct moment that I'll never forget, that I just think is kind of illustrative of what he did to me, was training camp, like, I don't know, second year playing, or maybe first year playing travel hockey.
You're like at this point?
10 or 11, yeah, early. And,
malleable.
Malleable. And he's just making a suicide sprint on the ice, which if you played hockey suck, and if you even play any sport, you know it's just the worst, and you're in a very dark place, and he's making us all do push-ups, and I could barely do it. Brad is just a total wuss, and like, it just wasn't happening. And I remember him literally coming up to me in front of the whole team. I'll never forget the moment, as I'm like on my knees failing to do rep 3 of the push-ups, and he was trying to get us to do 10, and being like, Noah, if you want to be a real epic hockey player, I need you to do push-ups every single day for a long time, right? Because this is unacceptable. And the next morning I woke up and started doing push-ups, and that was, 20 years ago at this point. And since then I've missed a total of 4 days of actually doing the push-ups every single day.
Good now.
And the 4 days that I missed was either due to crazy travel, a legitimate injury, and I still tried to find a way around it, or just like, being a dummy. But 4 total days I'd say is pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the type of stuff he instilled into me. But I had that, and hockey was a huge part of my life, as was just being an athlete. And then I also got into theater and acting and performance and studied theater in high school, which if you're a jock or played professional, not professional, at any level of competitive sports, you understand based on the locker room dynamics that being an actor and a performer is not necessarily something that plays in the bro culture of sports. And so it kind of created these early moments for me where I had to like reconcile how to think about that. I was like, I like this acting stuff, and like the people that I'm in these plays with are very different in a good way from the people I'm in the locker room with. Like, how do I manage that tension? And when you're young and not as mature, you have to try to figure out like, how do I even like think about how to not only admit it, but like lean into it. And so there were a lot of early moments of like try to figure out how to make both of those work.
Sure.
And I think that the tension between those two was fairly formative for me as an entrepreneur, investor, and you guys have seen a lot of the stuff I do with Uncharted. Like, there's a lot of front-facing
Totally.
things.
Sales and marketing.
Of the world that I'm in now, from running businesses, starting companies, raising funds, deploying, being in front of people. Like, a lot of my job, and frankly, the job of any entrepreneur, you have to know how to do sales, and more importantly, you have to know people.
Yeah.
And so I think that the acting stuff was deeply, deeply important and formative to me. So I would say the three kind of through lines, just to bring us all first circle in terms of like me and how I grew up, was amazing parents that were very supportive, a deep appreciation and almost like instilled sense of forced discipline early and like hard work that came really from hockey.
Yeah.
That has never left me. And acting and theater that provided a foundation for knowing how to communicate ideas, deal with people, interact, read energy, all the things that you train in as an actor that have all come full circle, I think, to be at least a good intrinsic foundation.
Yeah.
For the stuff I do.
Yeah.
Your hockey coach reminds me of Herb Brooks.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
picturing
definitely
you on the suicide line.
Yeah,
Miracle.
Who do you play for?
To be honest with you, there's some very funny stories of like playing competitive hockey in New York City. There's a lot of like, I'm just gonna be blind, like rich kids from the Upper East Side who've never been yelled at by someone. So there was a lot of funny moments. I didn't grow up with a level of money like that, but like having people just like seeing these kids who were still good friends of mine, and it's not to take anything away from them, just like get the shit kicked out of them.
Yeah.
Someone who was like a Canadian savage who could not give a shit what your dad does.
Right.
This is like, you're not worth
Got a bunch of fake teeth.
Exactly. Or no teeth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there are some good moments.
All right, so fun trivia. I never knew this about you. Dad, actor, mom, therapist.
Yeah.
Before we even get to the professional stuff, tell us about their careers. I can see the influence in the through line. It's clear you've brought those skill sets along with you. But that's pretty interesting and very different. You've charted a different path. So why don't you double click a little bit on the parents and their influence?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anyone who's been to Uncharted has probably met them. I make a point to make sure that they get a spot every single year, even if it's super sold out. It's a fun moment for them to be there. But they're amazing people, and I'm still super, super close and will continue to be with them. I think both entrepreneurs in their own right, like being an actor and actually achieving any level of success in the brutal business that is trying to be a performer is tough. And my dad studied theater in college and managed to find himself a nice niche doing voiceovers.
Okay.
Which was hugely helpful in actually like making some level of money and income that could put me through at least portions of college and actually like give us a life and foundation. So, if you've ever heard Honey Nut Cheerios commercials or A1 steak sauce or Crest Pro Health or Chase at some point in your life, you probably heard my dad's voice, which is pretty cool.
It is cool.
And then my mom, deep passion for helping families and children, and she fell in love with, I think she would put it as helping children and families dealing with chronic illness and loss. So super heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really heavy. Like mom gets cancer and is going to pass, or dad just died, or son or child is sick. Like, how do you as a family reconcile that? And so she started her career in Bellevue, dealing with generally lower income children who didn't have any level of understanding of how to be a self-advocate in an environment that was not really looking out for them. So, kids with leukemia, the whole thing.
Right.
And then eventually spun out and has continued to run her own private practice where she just works with children and families that are dealing with any level of chronic illness, loss, tragedy. And despite all that, she still somehow manages to keep an amazingly positive outlook on the world.
Yeah.
I think the stuff she does is genuinely amazing.
That's honorable. Whose idea was it to send you to the gnarliest hockey? Is there any biological ties to the hockey, or were they looking for something that they thought they were was missing? Or
the hockey, I don't. I think the hockey thing started because I had a couple buds when it was 5 or 6 that were playing, and I thought it was cool and different. And I used to do these clinics upstate, and started to play in such a park and like a much less competitive league, and I was like fairly big and relatively athletic, and there was a moment where like the really big travel team in New York that I didn't think I would make, I went to try out for it and was pretty sure I wouldn't make it. And credit to Danny, I think Danny O'Brien, I think he saw something in me that was like, you know, this big kid who seems to be reasonably athletic but clearly hasn't been coached, has some potential. And I think I was like the last slot that they gave on the team, and it changed my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So mental health is a huge topic, especially recently.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't exposed to like therapy at all until becoming an entrepreneur, moving to New York. I feel like, and just the times have kind of changed. The stigma around it has changed. How was that growing up with your mom being a therapist? Like, were there, you know, formal sessions, or do you feel like you have, you know, a better perspective on life, or a stronger mental health than someone who did not have a therapist as a mother?
We definitely didn't have forced therapy sessions where it was like, all right, session starts now and go to your room and get it in an hour. But I definitely think it gave me a better foundation for understanding how to like process or at least talk about emotion in a higher EQ way. I think one of the big issues facing, frankly, men in general is that you are kind of unintentionally or directionally trained to like not talk about your feelings and not have any level of like willingness to be vulnerable.
Right.
And so having a dad who was trained in like actually performing and like allowing himself to tap into emotions, to be vulnerable and emotional, to display those, and then a mom who did that for a living was certainly either directly or indirectly foundational and like allowing me to have some better foundation of just like being more in touch with the emotional side and understanding people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are founders, you know it, like understanding how to read people, whether it's your team or investors or they're selling to or clients or whatever it may be. It's like really important.
Right.
And so I think that foundational understanding was super valuable. And then that coupled with the like just maniacal intensity of sports, I think was a pretty good combination.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying, you said that, you know, that almost everything that you do as a founder is somewhat related to sales. I think that sales is a lot about being able to read what that person is feeling, right? And then tailoring your approach of, should I go harder? Should I back off?
And self-advocacy, I think, you know, like the performance component of is that if you're an actor, and you're always using those skills. And even if it's supporting like a spouse or a partner, right? You're always kind of like performing and selling yourself.
Well, I think the best salespeople in the world, the ones who are truly world class, never just read a script. You have your talking points, but the real art of sales, the real art of sales is understanding how to play tennis with a person. And like, you guys have done enough demos where you're like, all right, what am I working with here?
Right.
You could have on one side of the spectrum, super excited, bubbly, engaged, nodding, smiling with it entirely. And then you could have on the other end of the spectrum, brick wall or even camera off, not responding to anything. And you know, if you've taken acting or improv classes, like shit's important. So you like actually do know how to understand and interpret, like, all right, I got to work with what I'm doing right now. And you know, I'm sure everyone who's listening, and certainly you guys have had stories of like the moment when you kick save what you thought would be the worst sales pitch of all time, and it ended up coming through because you found one moment. And so a lot of what I think is the real art of sales is like, you need to just like be like a metal detector to search for something that can evoke a response.
It's something that I think is huge tell is the salesperson asking questions at the beginning, because if they're just going right into a demo or a script, they're not going to be able to play that. 100%. I was thinking about it DJing. Like a DJ is essentially 100%. They're going in with a plan, but you can know, damn, people are responding well to this. 100%. Like hard pivot in this direction. That's like keep it going.
That's a great analogy. If you're into music at all, or even bands, or certainly DJs, you've seen bad DJs and you've seen good DJs. The best DJs I've ever seen are like in lockstep with the crowd, right? They're like having them fall in with every song, every beat drop, and it's so reactionary, and it's like a conversation. Having the music to the people and the energy of the crowd and how it all connects. It's pretty cool.
DJs open their set with a question. They have to say, "Are you ready?"
How do you feel?
They're qualifying. Is it in the ICP? Is this customer is going to land on what I'm about to do?
All right, so that's early days. Let's talk about college.
I went to BU.
Terriers.
Go Terriers.
You know, I went to BC.
I do. It was.
We're supposed to hate each other.
I really don't care.
Yeah, because
And I'm not. I don't mean to talk bad about you because I met two of my best friends, but I was an anomaly there in pursuing anything entrepreneurial at all.
right.
That wasn't for hockey, was it?
No, it wasn't rock. I played a couple years of club, but I decided after high school that I wasn't going to make the NHL, and I probably could have played somewhat competitively in Canada, or like maybe the S3E low D1. But I was getting pretty into business at the time, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is a better path.
Yeah.
So I went to BU. I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I met some great people, many of whom are still friends. That is not an entrepreneurial school whatsoever.
Right.
I had the great fortune of my sophomore year spring break meeting Michael Loeb. And that was definitely a transformational moment. That was a trajectory shifter, and just in terms of how that opened up my world. And I ended up working for him, directly or with him, basically from that sophomore summer, all the way through graduation. In fact, still, anyways.
So two things. One, introduce Michael Loeb for those who might not know him and his backstory. And then two, how did you guys link up in the first place?
Yeah, Michael Loeb is a serial entrepreneur who has built, funded, and had a hand in at least 5 unicorns, like a big hand, and has invested and done well in hundreds more. His kind of defining early moment was he got fired from Time Inc. for trying to start a business within it. Then he ended up getting fired starting outside of it, and then they bought it back from him for $800 million.
Shout out. Shout out.
And then in that,
We love that. We have spite can be a strong motivator.
100%.
Sure is.
And in the new company, he incubated a little business called Priceline.com that ended up doing pretty well, and was kind of one of the OGs of the pharmacy benefits discount model, which he had a business that was spitting off 9 figures in profit, like just massive business.
Crazy.
And his family office that he started with his longtime partner and now my very good friend Rich Vogel, they started that in mid 2000s, late 2000s, and it basically is a family office that operates like a venture studio.
Right.
And I met him my sophomore year spring break, where there was this entrepreneurial bootcamp that I applied to and was the youngest person accepted to by about a decade, just out of pure hustle. It was an entrepreneurial bootcamp to like real founders, doing real businesses. That was basically like we went to the Cooley office in New York Times building for a 3-day intensive of how to manage your cap table and how to hire a CTO, like all the stuff of just like kind of building companies 101. Andrew Weinberg put it on Andrew's roadmaps. And Michael Loeb sponsored the closing cocktail party. And I remember I walked into his house and we rolled in, man, you've been to his.
I have.
You've been to that. Yeah.
That's Halloween parties.
Like, what is this place?
Yeah.
What is this guy do?
Yeah,
This
right.
is crazy. So I just made a point to shake his hand and say hello. And I probably stuck out because I was 19.
Yeah, I was willing to do it.
And I was willing to do it. And I basically said something along a bunch of like, hey, I'm going to email you. Remember my name and remember my face. Please look out for the email. Because I was like, I'm not going to talk shop.
Yeah.
I did remember it, and fortunately he brought me in. He said, hey, when you're back from college, come in and let's just talk.
Yeah.
And it was a 15-minute meeting on the calendar in like late June or something. My plan was to kind of work on my own startup that summer, and an hour into the 15-minute meeting, he was like, you know what? Your business idea is cute and it seems like it's going pretty well. Why don't you just intern for me and you can work on that too? But like, I want you in here.
Yeah.
I was like, what does an intern do? And he was like, I don't know, just start
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So I showed up on Monday, and in many ways the rest is history.
Right.
By the end of that summer, we had built a very close relationship. He had become very quickly a big mentor figure in my life that I felt both very grateful and deeply energized by having so much exposure to like real shit that early in my career.
Right.
When I was in college, the classes were not that exciting. I was like, I'm taking marketing classes that are outdated.
Right.
The finance stuff was cool and I learned some stuff. Like being in a business school when you're watching the world change and just in classes, this really isn't it. So being and having such direct access to exposure to the real thing that was being built was a big deal.
How do you even get down the business route in the first place? So you went to BU for business?
I went to BU for business. I got into the business school luckily in the honors program, which was pretty cool. And
Like none of the previous stories lead to business directly. So
I started realizing that I was excited and motivated. I'm just going to be blunt by money and building things, and I found it exciting. I started to follow the energy of. I met some of my dad's friends who were in business, and I got really close to a few of them. We became mentors, and I started to just get fascinated in high school by the markets more broadly and what companies were being built. And I just think there were some formative moments when I met some of my dad's friends who had done well, and I saw them driving fancy cars, and I saw them running companies, and we would go on vacations with them sometimes, and they were taking calls and doing business, and I was like,
Yeah, right.
This is sick. I like this.
Yeah.
So I started to kind of develop the muscle and the itch for wanting to get more into it. And by the time college came around, I had kind of really built conviction that I wanted to go into business. Even in high school, I was like trying to start to hustle and reading a lot of stuff about business. I just was like pretty dead set that I wanted to try to go be successful in the business world. I just got into it, which it was different from what my parents did.
Right.
A lot of this was me just trying to learn it and trying to just absorb. Until when I went to college, I was like, business school sounds good. I want to go be successful. I didn't know what that meant. Or at the time, I probably thought it would have been investment banking or something.
Right. Same. By the way.
Yeah. It's kind of the only thing you know.
Secondhand peer pressure.
Until you have people around you or kind of by osmosis can decipher that there is another path that rhymes with entrepreneurship. It's hard to know that early. Like you have to really have people around you. Like you listen to the stories of a lot of the early founders who, I was listening to the Acquire podcast about Google and over here. It's like, Sergey's parents or Claire's parents were both like engineers at Stanford and like taught in the computer science program at Michigan State or Michigan or something. Like that's a different world.
Totally
Exposed to that early.
Yeah.
Going to Stanford early. So I just didn't have that because I didn't know. So it took a few more years of being at BU where there was barely any innovation. It was all, that's a feeder school for accountants and
consulting.
That's it. It's purely that. That is the
BC was finance consulting, and there was like no other definition of success.
Like the career fairs, like Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, and like a couple.
Yeah, or in marketing. Like that was like a dirty word.
100%
like when
trucks and marketing. How are you guys talking?
Like
go work at Deloitte. So go. What are you talking about? Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, so before we switch gears to stop two, you were working on a startup when you met Michael Loeb, so just tell us a little bit about that.
It was do you remember when we were in college and I don't know if BC had this, but at BU you could go to the BU website and nested somewhere deep in there was the dining hall menu.
Yeah.
This engineer coder that I met, had built an app that allowed you to see the dining hall menu live and like MyFitnessPal log what you were eating. It was pretty cool. And I basically came on as like a late stage co-founder as the app was just starting to get traction.
Sure.
And ended up getting San Diego State, UCLA, and one or two other California schools interested in getting on board. And I was kind of working on trying to scope out, again, having no concept about price sales, where I was like, I'm trying to just get these schools to sign up and launch there. And that was around the time I met Michael. Okay. And obviously that app didn't end up working out for many reasons, not the least of which I was like working with this guy behind the scenes, probably like a better opportunity.
Yeah.
Guy who's also moonlighting while he has an internship at Accenture.
Right.
We're just working with this billionaire and see what comes of this.
Yeah.
But that was the original idea.
All right, awesome. All right, stop two. The professional story. Yours is multifaceted, so I don't know where to start. So maybe you tell us where to start. Is it top shelf? Because it's probably Uncharted, but Uncharted's not even like a thing at this time. So tell us about that transition into all the things that I don't know as today.
The very quick story is right when I graduated college, 2 days after graduation, I had surgery that I had to go to. I had to fly to Oklahoma City to do the surgery because it was the only place they could get it done in time. And I thought I was going to go work for one of Michael's portfolio companies in California. And I had a place in Silicon Valley lined up. And like the day before surgery, I ended up finding out that company was getting shut down because there was a board disagreement that they were pulling funding.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, well that's a curveball.
Yeah.
Literally the day after graduation. Like the day after when I was preparing to fly to California, I've been to Oklahoma City to get surgery. And when I woke up from being under, I had 3 missed calls from Michael Loeb. And I was playing the field because I had a pretty good network and there were a couple other fintech companies, et cetera, that were like trying to talk to me. And there were plenty of other options to go explore. And I had 3 missed calls from Michael Loeb. So like the first thing I did when I was like even remotely conscious, still in the wheelchair, I was fine by the way. It was a different surgery, but it was not a huge deal. I called him back still on the dunes and like kind of half asleep, but he was like, I really want you to come work with me. I have a new business that I'm about to make some serious money into. It's an analytics business. It's in the alcohol space. I also just made an investment at this company called Fetch, and I'm trying to onboard them into the portfolio. And I also, with this new company that we're going to start over fund, there's a technical CEO, but they don't have a good business leader.
Sure.
So I want you in. I want you to work on this. I was like, well, yeah, I didn't even have like a signed contract.
Yeah.
He was like, can you come in on Monday? And I was like,
it's one of those things you don't ask questions.
I was like, what? Yeah, let's. So we basically like over the course of 3 nights that week, like negotiated an offer for me to come work as like a kind of junior exec manager at 21. And this company started to get started. I didn't know anything about the alcohol industry other than like having some fun in college.
Right.
This business ended up being a pretty cool idea. And
What business was this?
it was called 3x3. That's what we named it.
Okay.
The intention of the business was basically to be an analytics layer for the independent alcohol channel. So anyone who's ever bought alcohol, you've probably bought it from an independent store.
Right.
Mom and pop owned. There's a reason for that. There's a lot of weird regulations.
Three-tier system.
Three-tier system. How many licenses can you own per state? So this business had built a technology that could read receipt level transaction data through the point of sale system. We kind of coined that technology, commercialized it, and my job was to scale that into retailers across the country. So I built a sales team, ended up becoming COO of that company where I served for like 2.5 years. Built it from 0 retailers to a couple thousand across the country, onboarding them, processing data, selling data to Moët Hennessy, Diageo, pilots, and contracts with all the big players.
And what was the pain point? Was it like stocking, or was
The pain
it?
point was that large manufacturers, because of the 3-tier system, have very little, if any, understanding of how products are actually selling.
Velocity-wise?
Velocity,
Yeah.
adjacencies, it's basically panel data, survey data, and that still remains an issue.
Yeah.
This was solving that. And in building that and helping the team scale it and being COO for a couple of years, I got a in the weeds front row seat, not only to how to build and manage people and kind of be a real leader of a company, but also how the booze industry works. And my big epiphany was, wow, this booze industry is crazy. Like, this is a huge space, and people think of it as niche. It really is not that niche. It's kind of ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's deeply embedded into society. It grows every year. And also, the large manufacturers have this built-in M&A cycle that they almost have to continue to fund because they suck at innovation.
Right.
So they need to acquire. And I started seeing all these brands launching, Long Drink and Loverboy when I was running this business, that I could see in the data. I was like, that company that's worth $7 million, because I saw the deck, is outselling in these stores
Right.
the companies owned by AB InBev.
Yeah, you have asymmetrical information.
I was like, what the hell is going on? I was like, I didn't really know the nuances of venture, but I was like, I know that if they can keep that up, it's worth more than $7 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I then, running that company, I met my now partner, Jason Sherman.
Shout out, Jason.
Shout out Jason Sherman. We love you. Congratulations on your new baby. You just had a new baby.
Shout out.
And he at the time was running EB InBev's M&A team. Venture.
I didn't know that.
He left to start Taproot a couple months later. We just became friends over a couple of years. And I'll spare the graphic details, but right before COVID, I went to Michael and Rich, and I was like, hey, I've had a good run as COO. I kind of want to get ready to do my own thing. And that happened literally where they said, yep, we totally bless you. Like, we want you to stay here and work on stuff and figure out what you want to do next. That happened a month before COVID. COVID happened. I ended up starting like this impact media business that went viral and did pretty well. And as COVID was subsiding, Michael calls me one night, late night, as he does. He's like, hey, I know you have a pretty good network, young founders. I know that you're pretty good with people, and I'd like to figure out how to build some community and energy coming out of COVID and bringing people together. What do you got? I was like,
Let me think about that. Yeah, for sure.
So I thought about it, and you guys have seen his house, and I was like, you know what? I'm sure I could get all my friends to come in and meet you because you're you, and they'd be honored anyway. But I think that could really be cool is if I hosted a dinner at your house, and I'll bring I'll bring my 10 smartest founder friends that are in my age bracket or within 10 years.
Right.
I called him. I was like, can I use your house for dinner? I'll host it. You can come. You can meet all of them. It'll be great. And he was like, I'll do you one better. How about you bring 8 and I bring 8? The table seats 17. We'll have 17 people there. We'll have it moderated. Let's do one together, and I'll bring my friends, you bring your friends. I was like, great, sounds good. So he got excited about it. We both started emailing our smartest friends. We picked a date, which was May 20th, 2021. So this is like 2 months out. We started working on this idea. Gary Vaynerchuk confirmed, a couple billionaires confirmed, all my smart founder friends confirmed, including Jason Sherman.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we have this guest list where I was like, oh shit, this is like crazy guest list. And at the time I was like, I'm not saying that I'm not accomplished now, but I certainly was not.
Sure, yeah.
I really at the time I'm ready to like this guy. And we spent 2.5 hours in his office the day before dinner, wargaming out, how do we make this awesome? What's going to make this memorable? And we came up with the idea that we were going to moderate. We were going to have someone moderate the dinner, which in my head, I was like, it'd be really cool to do that. I grew up acting. I could handle it. I got this. Let me think. And he calls me the morning of, and he's like, hey, I think I have a journalist who wants to moderate this. Like, is that cool with you? And I had to improv on the spot because in my head, I'm like, this is a real at bat for your boy Noah. I don't want
Yes,
to mess this up. And I was like, look, Michael, let me try it.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably do this again. if I screw it up, if you're not happy, if you don't think it goes well, I'll never ask you again, and I'll just continue to feed people in, and you don't have to break out again. And he was like, all right, game on. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
So that night, we have the dinner. I sit at the head of the table. Gary Vee is 3 seats down on my left. Michael's right there. A couple billionaires here. And it's like one of those pinpoint moments. I was like, I have no business being here. And I sure as hell have no business moderating this discussion. And as my heart's beating out of my chest, Michael clinks his glass, say, hey, Noah and I would like to welcome all of you to this dinner. And he passes the mic to me, and I proceeded to do what has become kind of a defining thing of Uncharted by introducing every person without looking at my notes. That goes back to the acting thing, because I have a pretty good ability to retain information. And for the next 3 hours, we had what ended up being, a lot of people said, the best dinner they'd ever been to. And at the end of the dinner, someone said, hey, how do I nominate someone for your next dinner? Can you put us all in a group chat? We did. We found out that several deals got done because of that dinner. Friendships were born. Jason and I ended up starting our fund together. And so we kept running these dinners. And after a year, we had enough people come through that Michael said, hey, let's bring them all out to my house in the Hamptons to do a summit, get some speakers. So we hosted the first ever Uncharted Summit with literally zero team or infrastructure at it. Like Michael's team had a tent and they put an AV thing on the stage, and I invited everybody and we just put it on ourselves. I don't know if you guys were at the first ever one. You guys were?
I think it was 22, right? So we're talking 1 year after Uncharted started.
Right.
Was the first.
Was the first summit, exactly.
I got my bag.
You got your badge.
Check the year.
Yeah, you check the year. Yeah. So that became a thing, and after the first year, we brought some people in who helped commercialize it a bit and sell sponsorships again. So it's become a pretty good business, but we've heard indirectly has burnt probably 9 figures.
Oh, 100%. As people who've been to the dinners and the summit, I mean, co-sign all the way. I much like you were probably like, I'm probably the only name people don't recognize here. I remember being at the dinner and I'm like, holy shit, I don't deserve to be here whatsoever. And it ended up being that it was moderated. You knew every single goddamn person's name, spat it out. And I had a great experience. And we met clients, we met investors. So I can co-sign and speak to what that experience has been, and I think it really built something cool there. I didn't know the backstory of how it all came together.
Yeah.
You had the founders, and Mike had all the people who could help get those founders to the next level.
That feeling of how did I end up here? How did I end up at this table? You're probably feeling that. How did I end up in this truck?
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love this song.
So let's cap out on Uncharted. Then I want to talk about Top Shelf, and then I want to wrap with Outer Signal. So Uncharted. For those, obviously they got the story of it. What is it today? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say it's a media and events business with a community wrapper around it. We have dinners every single month and more programming coming. We have about 3,000 to 4,000 people who come through and kind of bona fide members of the community as a result of being initiated by attending an event or being nominated in. Our flagship event is the Summit. That's our Super Bowl. The Summit has become, I've been told, kind of one of the...
We got drone shows now.
Yeah, kind of one of the canvas events.
It's advanced.
It's advanced. We've got a great team around it and people working hard on it. And now we're bringing in a team to help expand the programming to include more types of summit and more types of summits and more types of programming, dinners that are not hosted by me, which, what's exciting to me about Uncharted now is it's at a point where it's not that it doesn't need me, but it's getting to a point where it's bigger than me.
Right.
It's kind of the whole point. I have hosted myself literally every single Uncharted event until this point, and that's gotten us to, billions in revenue and a good foundational base. But I think both Michael and I see ambition that if this is going to work, it needs to be bigger than us. And it's getting to that point now. Like Michael's no longer at every dinner. I'm starting to test one in the fall that I'm not even at to see if that works, and I think it will.
Yeah.
So that's how it is now. It's a media and events business, community business.
Yes. That's where we met Ryan Serhan, season 1 guest.
That's
That was
it.
Uncharted.
Yeah, Ryan's an OG at sure. Yeah, I love Ryan.
All right. I want to switch gears a little bit now to Top Shelf Ventures. Sure. So how did that all come together? Obviously, you had a front row seat to the industry and saw a lot of opportunity there and asymmetrical information. Why did you want to start a fund? And then how did the fund come together?
A lot of credit needs to go to Jason here. So there was the foundation was this. I had been pretty forthright with Michael and Rich that I had big ambition to build my own thing. And credit to them as being kind of like perpetual mentors and shepherds of entrepreneurship.
You bet on people.
They gave me both the blessing and permission to go pursue those things with an intent of like, hey, when you find one that's good, we'll evaluate and we'll either invest in it or we won't, but go for it, right? And it just kind of so happened that it might have had, I mean, I've never actually asked Jason this, but it might have had something to do with the fact that Jason saw me perform at that dinner. But I think 3 months later, he was like, hey, I have an idea I want to talk to you about. And he basically went into his office and he was like, I think we should launch a fund. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, he kind of walked me through the thesis. Alcohol and vice are huge categories. There is a shockingly low amount of smart money in the space, despite how much overall money goes. A lot of the early brands have no clue where to get capital. And in any venture business, there's a power law where like most of the brains will fail, as you guys know, but the ones that win end up getting acquired for huge sums of money. And more importantly, when you have a category that's that big, that's starved of institutional money, that has clear and proven exits and really good liquidity, no pun intended, when you can get it right, that's a good opportunity to make money. So he basically presented me with this opportunity, like, hey, what if we started a fund together and watered on it? He was still running Tavern at the time, which meant I would have had the lead, really like kickstarted myself. I was dramatically underqualified to start a fund, and I didn't know what the hell it meant. But I was excited about the idea of working with Jason, and I was really excited about the idea of having my own thing. So I called, I started spending time on it. I called Michael and Rich. I said, what do you think about this? They were like, we actually like it. They ended up investing with LPs in Fund 1. Once I could prove, and again, it frustrating at the time, but I give credit that in hindsight, I think the world would have thought that they would have just anchored it and done the whole thing. Sure, they could have financially, but they didn't. They said, once you can get to X amount as a first close, we'll invest and match a certain amount of it, which ended up happening. So I hustled like crazy. Right. Got a lot of people to invest, and we did our first close in November 22. So you can see the timing with Uncharted at Top Shelf. And the first deal we ever ended up doing was a business called Gratsi, which many people have probably heard of. Shout outs. One of the fastest growing alcohol companies of all time. We got to get them on some trucks. Yeah, that's right. In New York soon. On season 4. And yeah, Top Shelf, we're on Fund 2 now. We've done 15 plus deals. Gratsi is our first check, and we're the largest outside shareholder, outside the founder. Is certainly one of the fastest growing alcohol companies the last decade, and maybe of all time. Just I think they've grown. Yeah. I think we built a good niche for ourselves. Yeah, and so from an investment perspective, what are you looking for? Are there mandates? Is there a stage that you find yourself gravitating towards? Yeah, I mean, it started as we were an alcohol fund. It has evolved into we are a consumer advice fund. When I say consumer advice, I explicitly mean things that can behave from a regulatory and commercialization engine like alcohol. Okay. So it generally rhymes with consumer packaged goods. It needs to have some level of federal legalization, and it needs to have some level of a real clear path to exit, where there's either going to be a business that can be so cash flow supportive that it can return investors that way, or it needs to have a clear exit environment. So what does that look like right now? Booze for sure, nicotine pouches. We just made our first investment in a big one into that space. The hemp THC market. And the thing those all have in common in this moment in time is that they give people a feeling. They have a commercial and regulatory environment around them that may sound complicated, but is reasonable and like federally accepted on some level. Right. And some level of exit environment where you can map to exit to liquidity. I love and am interested in things like psychedelics. There's other categories as well that I like and I'm really interested in. The regulatory is not quite there yet for us to get into, and certainly we will eventually. But that's generally Top Shelf stand. They just say if it is something that can give people a feeling, has a commercialization regulatory environment around it, more interested. Yeah, and then what about stage? It started as seed. It's evolved into more seed to A. We also do some special situations. Sure. But the common thread of what we look for is real outliers in terms of velocity, retention, and consumer love of the brand. We look for businesses that are quantitatively proving that they are separating from the pack and playing the space that's worth playing into. Now built by, and I can say this is evolution since Fund 1. Originally it was all quantitative, and I learned somewhat the hard way that you always need to have really killer founders in there with what they're doing. So it's quantitative velocity retention first, followed by a category we believe it, followed by killer founder and operator that we believe can take a distance. If you have all three, which I'll stand up and do, we're generally interested and can flex as late as, much later stage with bigger chunks. Yeah.
How does how's the outlook of the venture market today? I mean, when we raised in 2021, it was valuations were at a peak, then they crashed in 22, 23. Where are we now?
I also think there's a convergence of VC to private equity, which I think is interesting.
Well, I'll answer this in two ways. If your company has AI in it and you went to Stanford, just open the bank account and everyone's going to wire you money. But if you're doing something different, it's a little bit harder. Right. I think a lot of people are still licking their wounds from a 2021 environment where things are funded at ridiculous valuations that had no business being done so. And I think it's created a little bit of a venture apocalypse where like everything is growing on a net. There's a crazy power law happening where there's a lot of power concentrating in a lot of these AI businesses that are huge, for a lot of capital going there. Then on the other end, there's a bit of a void, I think, happening. So it's a bit of a barbell right now.
Yeah.
On the Vice side, I think it's an interesting move. Like, everybody is so focused on AI, as they should be, and I'm investing there personally because it's obviously a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And yet still, Vice is never going away. It remains one of the most deeply important and kind of ubiquitous parts of humanity and culture. And there is generally a much lower percentage and availability of smart money in that space that is really built on institutional grade background and understanding of how capital markets work and how these things grow. And I think in many ways that's kind of our edge.
Yeah.
Top Shelf is focused on this space because we think, best in class, certainly one of them, at finding and exploiting in a good way the businesses that have a chance to become 10x where they are now and scale the household.
Arbitrage that reality.
So you obviously have the beverage background from building 3x3.
Yeah.
And then do you think that once you started Uncharted and your network was growing, you're being exposed to other founders, do you think that that was like the perfect combination of like, okay, now it's time to start a fund? You're bringing together your past experience and your and the network that you've built. And then following on that question, has building Uncharted had anything to do with trying to increase your deal flow?
It's a good question. I can certainly say in hindsight that it made a lot of sense. At the moment, I don't think that I was seeing the field that clearly. I will say I, perhaps to a fault, and even more than I needed to, tried to keep church and state separate. So I tried to be very respectful. Now Uncharted's enough of a thing where I don't really have to.
What's your phrases?
Yeah, but at the time I was trying to be really respectful about trying not to cross-pollinate too much because I wanted them to both stand on their own feet and not feel like the fun to lean too heavily on Uncharted or vice versa. So now it's at the point where they're both legitimate enough that I can cross-pollinate because it's synergistic for both of them. Of course, both. I certainly think it helped the deal flow, and I think, frankly, the thing that it's been most helpful for is just making me a bit of a known entity in the space. So even if I'm not in the ring anymore, I think enough people who understood what Uncharted is, even if I never hosted another dinner, or hosted another thing, which I obviously will, would be like, all right, Noah is at the center of some level. Noah's a little bit in the nucleus of like how things are moving. Right, I could clearly bring the right roots together. So.
And it's keep you current on so many different things. Like I was at the AI, I think it was like a breakfast initially. And so it's forcing you to stay like who's building in the bleeding edge of these spaces.
Sure. So it's definitely good for deal flow. It's not why I did it, but in hindsight,
you and I have had some conversations about this, but I want to talk about outer signal. First off, the question would be, what is outer signal? And then we could talk about why you got involved.
Yeah, so outer signal is a VIP customer detection and consumer enrichment engine that for any company that's selling online at any capacity, usually Shopify is doing, but really any company that's digital more broadly, outer signal can directly plug in, instantly discover VIPs as defined by what matters to you. So whether it's celebrities, influencers, investors, head of retail at Walmart, doctors, lawyers, anybody that matters to you, outer signal will flag it so that you as a brand owner or marketer know who's buying from you. And what happened in building that through Zach, who's the CEO, we learned that he was actually enriching not only VIPs, but every single customer. We have pretty comprehensive bios and context, whereby if you own, PolandSpringWater.com and use outer signal, you're not only going to know which VIPs are buying from you, you're going to see with unprecedented specificity every customer buying from their age, their gender, their occupation, their property value, social following, full context with new significant others. Which we've learned is pretty transformational. Full credit here goes to Zach, who's the CEO. This is
shout out.
It's his brainchild. Shout out to Zach Zellner. He built this and conceptualized it himself based on things he used to do with his own businesses. And I'm fortunate enough to be sort of an early investor and silent partner in the business. I'm watching as Zach build what I think can be a pretty transformational company.
Yeah, and obviously as a company that works with a lot of consumer brands, I mean, it happens all the time. They see a social post and they go, holy shit, we did not know that Ariana Grande was like a super user of our product.
All the time.
I mean, it's just, there's so many different ways to play that hand. You can contact them, they can become ambassadors, you can probably, start sponsoring their events. The earned media potential of it's crazy. And so what are you finding that people are using that data most clearly for?
Well, I think personalization in e-commerce and communications is the holy grail that drives just remarkably higher ROI across the board, right? The way that you will email your lawyer customers should be different than the way that you will email your influencer customers, which should be different than the way that you're going to email Tom Shea, the founder and CEO of Agile Media, right? All of this is about resonance and conversion. And the crazy thing to me that I've now realized is that as marketers and brand owners across the board, everybody spends so much time and money and blood and sweat and tears building funnels and conversion mechanisms to go out into the world and cast a net and catch these fish, right? Get them to buy and give you your credit card. Then you get them and you put them in a fish tank and you don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
You know their name and their email, which is crazy,
right?
Because all you're doing from a retention marketing perspective is throwing fish food in and being like, I hope some of them come up and grab it and we got 2% conversion on this one. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so what Outer Signal does that's so remarkable is it says, hey, that fish does this for a living. This is what they care about. This is why they matter. This is the food that would be most likely to get them to convert. And I think it's a paradigm shift in what marketing can look like from brands from a retention perspective, which in reality is like, the value of an earned customer that you've already gotten is much higher
100%
than that of a new customer.
So much harder.
So if you have a tool that can give you a personalization layer for your existing customer base,
right?
Whether you're a media company that's got millions of consumers or a new Shopify brand that's just got your first 100, understanding those customers on a one-to-one level has never really been possible before. And that's why I think what Zach has built with Outer Signal was so transformational.
Yeah, the segmentation pathways have been crazy. I remember when I was at McMaster, we were like, hey, there's different types of shoppers. There's people that shop by code, and there's people that use text-based. Can we create an entire different web experience based on the information that we know about this person and have like completely different website, different funnel? So I think that's fascinating. I also like the analogy. I'm thinking like dog finally captures the post office guy, the postman. He's like,
what do I do?
Oh, so like, what are you gonna do here?
100%.
All right, no. Well, I'm excited to get to our next stop. It's stop 3. It's a game we call the Hot Box. You ready for the Hot Box?
Let's go.
All right. First question: give up email or give up Slack for life?
Slack.
Cold plunge or hot tub?
Cold plunge.
Sweet snacks or salty snacks?
Sweet.
Sampling in store or influencer unboxings?
Sampling in store.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Canva, Figma?
Canva.
Winter or summer?
Winter.
More dominant consumer trend: protein or fiber?
That's it.
Telepathy or teleportation?
Teleportation.
Neat or messy?
Yay.
DTC or D2C?
DTC.
$50 on red or black?
Black.
In-house or outsourced?
In-house.
Board games or video games?
Video games.
Spotify podcast or Substack deep dives?
Substack deep dives.
Beach house or ski house?
Beach house.
Work remote or return to office?
Work remote.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or TikTok?
Instagram.
Pineapple pizza or candy corn?
Yo.
You gotta pick. I don't make the rules.
Gotta light it both on fire?
No.
Pineapple pizza.
Live music or DJ?
DJ.
Advertisement or advertisement?
Advertisement, obviously.
Call, text, audio notes.
Text.
Give up bread for life or cheese for life?
Bread.
Air guitar or air drums?
There goes.
Start early or leave late?
Early.
Trucks or billboards?
Billboards on sharks.
There we go. Receive good news first or bad news first?
Bad news first.
Well, the bad news is we've come to the end of our show.
Oh, that was good transition.
No, you've been a really great guest. We've known each other forever. I'm so excited to have you on here. I want to close out with our final stop. Where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about Outer Signal, Top Shelf Ventures, and Uncharted?
Find me on LinkedIn or Instagram or X at Noah S. Friedman, or if you just search Noah Friedman or Noah Sandwich Friedman, you should find me. Topshelf.ventures. Actually, no, we just changed it. Topshelfventures.com is the website. Joinuncharted.com is Uncharted's website, and then outersignal.com, and look up Zach Zellner. He's the CEO, and I'm super proud of all of it.
Awesome. Well, now, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Lois. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming.